So there I was at my desk. It was a rainy fall day. I was bored. Decided, you know what? We should probably design a new ELK call, even though I had set to not design a new ELK call for. Hold on, rewind. That's when we got it right. We had this design before this time last year. I was sitting there bored, probably a hot day, probably sunny here in Washington, beautiful Western Washington. I decided, hey, we should probably design a new ELK call. So I, like any good engineer does, I plot a napkin in my Sharpie. I start to kind of draw the top side, the right side, the front view, kind of an idea of what I thought, hey, why can't we use an amp diaphragm inside of a cassette with a rubber body to make this call work? There's no reason in my mind it wouldn't work. So when we sat down to design this call, we wanted something that was fairly easy to use, hands-free, and allowed a bow hunter, muzzleloader hunter, anybody trying to call elk to have access to their weapon. That was kind of the number one goal with this call. So we designed this call to have a rubber body that basically acts as your tongue for people that either have a gag reflex, can't run a diaphragm very well, any of the issues that plague somebody that can't run it. Be a little bit more automatic, be hands-free, and sound very good. Like in my opinion, everything that was out there, it may be hands-free, but it just doesn't sound good, or it sounds like robot. You can sound the same over and over, but you can't add any emotion. You can't add any influence to the call. You're just going to get the same call over and over. So we started to design this thing. We designed it out of a silicone body. We had the amp frame that fit in the plastic cassette. And myself, Dirk, and Abram, who was helping me design this call, we were all started testing samples. And we're like, man, the first time around we went with like 5 different tongue shapes. We went with a couple different body shapes, airflow paths, different chambers and whatnot. And the first round was like, meh. You could get it to sound like an elk, but it wasn't much of an elk. And so we go through round 2, we make changes off of what we thought was the best call. Get them the second time around, we're like, man, we missed the boat again. Like, we can't get this thing to sound right. And we're all kind of scratching our head, trying to figure out what we need to do next. I think we made one more iteration on the third try, got them all, and this isn't working. And we kind of shelved the project. Me and Dirk were in a meeting, a Zoom meeting, and we were having a heck of a time hearing each other because the way that it cancels noise frequencies. And so Dirk's like, we were messing around, and I think at the same time we're like, well, let's try to suck on this thing. I'm gonna inhale instead of exhale, because up to this point it had always been an exhale call. And Dirk's like, man, mine sounds awesome. I'm like, but I can't hear you. And I'm like, mine's sounding really good, but I can't hear you. Like, this has everything we'd want in a call. And so we were sitting there texting each other videos of like, hey, my phone will pick it up. And I'm like, man, that sounds good. Mine sounds just as good. And we're like, all right, here's where we invert the call. It's no longer an exhale call. It's now an inhale call. And I think we actually backed up some versions. Like, hey, we had a version that was really good. We had just never tested it the opposite direction on inhaling versus exhaling. So we went back to a model that had a really good tongue shape, did everything we wanted, made some aesthetic changes, made a few operational changes so the cassette operated easier, put a hood over the amp diaphragm, and ultimately we moved forward with this being an inhale call. The very first thing we loved about the inhale call is it fixed a few of the issues we had with diaphragms. Number 1, the latex is no longer getting wet, the tape is no longer getting wet. Those are the 2 things that will break down a diaphragm faster than anything. Guess what? By being an inhale call, similar to deer calls that inhale, they don't freeze up, they don't get wet. They last for a very, very long time. Now, it's not great for somebody who owns a call company, but it's giving the user a very, very durable call. Number 2, and maybe more important than number 1 durability, is this call sounds amazing. Very, very good sounds. You can change it up by bite pressure. Number 1, it's got to sound good. Number 3, hands-free. So as you're running this call during a bow hunt, a muzzleloader hunt, even a rifle hunt, if you need to have your hands on the gun, you need to be able to dial a scope, change a sight, have your hand on the release, whatever it may be. This call allows you to do that. Interchangeable voices, so just like a diaphragm, I prefer one diaphragm, Dirk prefers a diaphragm. You just change out the amp diaphragm to your liking, to your tone, whether you want a high-pitched tone, a young cow, calf, you want a deep cow, calf, mature cow, you just change out the insert. Once again, just like our Easy Bugler system, you don't have a bunch of replacement reeds. Guess what? Take the tape off of an amp frame, put it in this cassette, put it back into the Easy SUK'R body, and you're ready to go. So in my opinion, There hasn't been any innovation in the elk call world for a long time that compares to this. It's unique. Sound quality is amazing. I think it's going to be well received by everybody out there elk calling. And this, just similar to our Easy Bugler, all we're trying to do is listen to the audience, listen to everybody out there elk calling, find out what their biggest struggles are, where our biggest misses are, and fill that gap with a call. So we accomplished that with the Easy Bugler last year, being able to help everybody that can't bugle. We heard so many reviews, so much feedback on, hey, I've never had a season like that. I haven't been able to bugle like that. I haven't had responses like that. And so we're hoping with this Easy SUK'R on the cow call side, replacing diaphragm use, that everybody will have a better season, not be afraid to use a call, have confidence in running a call, and we're excited. I think it's a game changer. Looks cool. We've got the lime green silicone body. We've got the black insert. A real nice 550 paracord. It's comfortable to wear. As I said, hands-free. You do need to be a little bit cautious when you're putting the call in your mouth to run a bow, because we all know our bowstring as a right-hander is going to come to our nose. You've got to put this call over in the side of your mouth, which is not a big deal. Now, if you do have your hands available, this is a great call. This is not just a hands-free call. If you want to use this call to call an elk for your buddy, use it to call while you are using your hands. It gets even better, because the more you can cup the chamber, just like when we're diaphragm calling, if you can build on this chamber, it starts to sound better. You can't get a call to sound that well. Most diaphragm callers that are good, it's very tough. And this has that nasally sound that I myself struggle getting on a diaphragm. Dirk's mentioned the same thing, like it gives you a different tone, gives you a different resonance. So super easy to use. You put your bottom teeth in the teeth groove. You apply a little pressure with your top. You do want to seal the call off with your lips. So all I'm doing is biting, because you want to start with pressure on that latex, just like you would if the diaphragm was in your mouth. You're starting with pressure on that latex. You're starting to suck in on the call, inhale on the call, and you drop your teeth in a rate that gives you that call. I think within a minute or two playing around with it, you're going to quickly be able to figure out what that rate needs to be. One other tip we've learned, we've got to play with this for a year now, is just like blowing on a diaphragm, it's a set amount of air coming out of my diaphragm. I'm not like sucking on a straw to drink pop. I've got an idea whether it's going to be a 2 or 3 second call. I inhale and then I stop the call. If it's a predetermined set of air, and you're going to inhale through your diaphragm and pull that air in. So it's a very short burst for me, and it'll be similar to this, but it actually, with the back pressure that the call creates, it lengthens out. So it's like, it's a very short burst. It does sound longer than on the call, but the call does slow that burst down. So it's like a set amount of air. And so I try to think about keeping constant pressure on my diaphragm. Like, you're keeping it loaded up, you're inhaling to a point, and then you're cutting it off very quickly. You can see I don't know how well it's going to come out there, but you can see the tongue shape that we decided to go with. I will pull this insert up. Super easy in the field. If you're not getting the sound, for some reason this gets damaged, you can pry the rubber body apart from the call. As you can see, it's got a cassette. The air flows in through this, it turns, and then it hits the bottom of the latex. You can see it's got tongue shape. We run that air across the latex just like it was a diaphragm in your mouth. You change it out, you pop that amp frame out, it sits in there, you can pop it right back in, and you're ready to go. Super easy to change in the field if you want to change tones, for some reason damage it. We've been running these calls for a long time, and we're not getting anywhere on that latex or the system. It just holds up for a long time. So super excited about it. The Phelps Easy SUK'R should be another game changer for us.